This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. This week, since we were so excited for the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, we thought we'd show Jonathan Commander Shepard's tools of the trade from the original trilogy.
The Mantis, M92C Mantis, looks very much like a modern day sniper rifle with some stuff stuck to it. Yeah, it's a cool design, don't get me wrong, but it does smack of sniper rifle in space.
If there are any other games, guns, or mechanics that you guys want to see Jonathan break down, let us know in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one, and if you'd like to help out the Royal Armouries Museum and continue to support Jonathan's work, check out the links in the description of this video. Right, over to Jonathan.
The first weapon up is the Avenger. Can't really call it a rifle, I don't think, technically speaking, because from what I understand of the lore, there's no rifled bore or anything. These are sort of miniature coil guns or rail guns propelling some sort of projectile at some sort of velocity. In this case, we've got chemical rounds, which you can always tell because anything toxic in a game is always green. How that works with the mechanics of reloading the weapon, feeding the weapon, isn't clear, because I'm familiar with how the projectile weapons are supposed to work. How that works with chemical rounds, how you charge them with the chemical, isn't clear. That might be in a codex somewhere, I don't know. I guess that's one of the more iconic designs from this universe. It's very sci-fi looking. The two barrels, sort of squat, humps looking design with a somewhat recognisable buttstock on it. I mean, fashion does affect the design of firearms. No matter what anyone says, the same basic functionality can be obtained with something that looks completely different as far as the aesthetics go. So some of what we see here could well be purely down to aesthetic preference. We've got essentially there a space shotgun, and it fits that niche of a shotgun. It's pretty much described as such. And I always tend to think that in the far future, surely shotguns would be obsolete. There'd be a weapon that does it all. We wouldn't need something that is less precise, has more of a spread, slower to reload. But of course, for gameplay reasons, you need a variety of weapons. And we've had the shotgun in one form or another for pretty much 500 years, so why wouldn't it still exist?
Lost shield!
Something I'm struck by here is the sound effects. So the weapons are very sci-fi. They're hyper advanced, they look like something from the future, funnily enough. The sound effects, though, are very conventional gunshot reports. They sound like chemical firearms going off. Now, to some extent, that's expected. I would expect anything firing a physical projectile, even if it's a tiny piece of hyper-accelerated whatever, I would still expect it to make a bang. It's a surprise in a way, aesthetically speaking, that they went with bangs. But I suspect things like Aliens have cemented, and Blade Runner have cemented the idea that if it's a sci-fi weapon firing any kind of projectile, or propelling any kind of projectile with force, it's not an energy weapon, that it will, on some level, go bang.
Heavy weapons, watch yourselves!
We've moved to what's described as a hand cannon here. A sort of throwback term here of hand cannon, implying that it's something that's low rate of fire but very damaging. Something equivalent to maybe a sawn-off shotgun, or maybe it's a Space Desert Eagle. And we've also moved here in Mass Effect 2 back to a more traditional ammunition management system, from just being energy and heat based to something, I don't know if it's meant to be more relatable, more accessible to players of other types of game. Maybe given all the chest-high walls in Mass Effect 1, they decided to go Gears of War inspired, I don't know. But you've got this standard count of rounds in the magazine, number of magazines. It looks to me as though we've got some sort of holographic technology here, acting as a sort of interface on the outside of the weapon, and possibly as a sighting system. Forgive my ignorance, but it looks like there is some sort of holographic sight, which no longer requires a frame or a tube or to be projected. It just appears on top of the weapon. And I don't think we're that far away necessarily, by which I mean 50 years or so, from some sort of sight that can just be generated above the weapon. We are going to move away from the iron sight, I think. We've already reached the point where firearms are sold without any iron sights.
Getting to cover.
Right, we've got the X9E Tempest submachine gun. So again, we've got the game mapping itself onto current world tropes for firearms. Why would you need a submachine gun other than for gameplay reasons? There is no reason. It really should be able to do what the assault rifle has nearly done in the current era, which is make the submachine gun obsolete. So the same applies here to Mass Effect. Why would you need something that is essentially a giant pistol? Especially as it appears to have no buttstock. And we know that the rifles require buttstocks for accurate firing. This is much more of a Gears of War inexplicable missing stock situation. Why wouldn't it have some sort of shoulder stock? We've got the Avenger here again. For me, one of the more iconic weapons of the franchise, as someone who's not really a player, and it has got. I've criticised it for not having an optical sight, but at least by Mass Effect 2, the M8 has got some sort of built-in optical sight on top of it. Otherwise, the design of the thing is really sci-fi. It doesn't really look like anything that we have today, other than having a pistol grip and a trigger and a recognisable buttstock. But the description is interesting because it's one of these game descriptions that could have been written about a modern-day weapon. Modular design, inexpensive components, favourite of military groups and mercenaries, reputation for being tough, reliable, easy to use, easy to upgrade. That pretty much fits the AR-15. And that description, kind of without overtly comparing it to the present-day equivalent, settles your brain into, yeah, it's like an M4. I want to be using that as my stock go-to weapon, probably. So one of the holographic things that I'm seeing on the weapon here is what I gather is a symbol for some sort of incendiary ammunition. So it looks like you could have had that in the HUD, which is obviously what we as a video game player are seeing. But it seems as though, rather than a sort of head-up display or neural interface, what in Mass Effect 2 anyway, you see what you need to project it out of the weapon. So that's something I've not seen done, in contrast to something like Gears of War, where there are weird glowing lights on the weapon because it looks cool. This does something functional. We are onto the machine guns. S76C Revenant, described as a machine gun, and it is big and bulky, so it sort of fits that, the reality of what a machine gun is, and also the trope of being something big and slows you down, but is potentially more damaging. So I'm not quite sure if this is meant to use different technology than the assault rifle and other weapons, but it seems to be rather different. They look like energy blasts, and they're traveling a lot slower than I would imagine. We've also got a muffled report from the weapon, which I'm guessing is to the fact that we're in either no atmosphere or a very thin atmosphere where sound doesn't travel. Well, if it was no atmosphere, it shouldn't travel at all, although you'd still feel the vibration, and if the gun is against your spacesuit, you would get sound conducted through the spacesuit, through the helmet, through the whatever. But it's a change in report that I don't think is reflective of the fact that it's a machine gun so much as the environment that we're in. And then the sniper rifle class. The Mantis, M92C Mantis, looks very much like a modern day sniper rifle, or maybe an anti-materiel rifle with some stuff stuck to it, which, to be fair to Mass Effect, is not normally the case. The weapons are usually pretty creative. I think this falls into if it's a sniper rifle, it's got to look like a sniper rifle, so it's got to have a big thick barrel, some sort of muzzle device looking thing on the end, which I'm not sure you'd need. And then it's got a sort of integrated electronic looking scope. Yeah, it's a cool design, don't get me wrong, there's curves and everything, but it does smack of sniper rifle in space. Now the description for it claims that it's used primarily by police and militia groups. And of course police do have a requirement for marksmen / sniper rifles. albeit they tend to use them at much closer range for a very accurate shot at a range that would normally be like an infantry rifle range, 100 meters, 200, probably no more than 100 meters, I would have thought, because you absolutely must not harm civilians, and if you have to take a shot to use lethal force, it has to be dead on, whereas military snipers are obviously trying to incapacitate or kill at all sorts of different distances.
High impact shot!
And as we're moving up the destructive spectrum, we've reached an actual anti-materiel rifle, or as the game has it, anti-material rifle, which is technically incorrect. The X98E Widow. This does look very, very science fiction, but it has an enormous scope on it. I'm not really sure why we wouldn't miniaturize optical sight technology, or even be using nano drones to fly unseen to the target. Guided rounds, guided triggers, all sorts of technology you could extrapolate to do something other than just, it's a space Barrett. This is a space Barrett. The description kind of backs me up there in that it talks about how good it is against armor and shields, the weight of 39 kilograms. It's just, why would a future anti-materiel rifle need to be 39 kilograms? I don't understand. Maybe it's because it gives you near unlimited ammunition, I don't know. Just to further reinforce the trope of not only the sniper rifle in a game, but the heavy sniper rifle or anti-materiel rifle, this thing is single shot. It might have an unlimited magazine for all I know, but between shots the operator has to charge it. I cannot see a reason why that would be necessary. We've already reached a point where accurate semi-automatic sniper rifles exist, if you've got the money, that basically negate the need for a bolt action. And in the next 20 odd years, I dare say bolt actions will shuffle off entirely.
Heads up!
Bit of a change of pace. So we've got something that's classified as a shotgun, but is not a shotgun. It's not a gun, as far as I can tell, and it definitely doesn't fire shot. It fires miniature but potent cluster rounds of superconducting projectiles. Don't know that makes sense. Two-stage trigger system allows for either quick-fire capacitors or a charge and release attack. Okay, so this is a charge up and release alt-fire type situation. Okay, fair enough. So it's an alien shotgun, essentially, or it's what they've developed in parallel to our real-world shotgun, which has then been replaced by the type of shotguns we see in Mass Effect. So I didn't see a huge difference in the way the weapon was depicted for something that seemed to be saying it was more of an energy weapon. It seemed to function much the same. It sounded a bit more pew pew, but in terms of its role in the game, it definitely, you can see why it's in the shotgun bracket, because it functions much like one, really. Right, the really big stuff. So, M100 grenade launcher. This is quite a funky looking thing. Big, chunky thing with a big drum magazine. Given that most weapons in these games seem to work on the basis of accelerating fragments of metal, I'm not quite sure how the grenade launchers are supposed to function. In actual use, the grenade launcher is, well, it sort of makes sense as an extrapolation of current technology. We've already seen things like the XM25 that are semi-automatic, smaller grenades that travel on a flatter trajectory, although not as flat as this. This is more like a sort of personal rocket launcher, actually. The speed that the things travel, they travel on a flat trajectory, they look to be rocket assisted or in some way propelled. Plausible enough for sort of far future grenade launcher equivalent. No reason why we would have to be stuck with an arcing trajectory. We've got another alien weapon now, the Collector Assault Rifle. So the term assault rifle obviously implies certain things, but this race has used sort of biomechanical technology, which gives it a rather different aesthetic, probably the most important thing about it actually. And it expresses some vagueness over how it actually works, which is nice. You know, you wouldn't necessarily know how an alien weapon functioned. So, but it's interesting that it's developed in exactly the same parallel The description is very reminiscent of the human assault rifle. So it's pieces or pellets of metallic enamel rather than just shavings of metal. Well, same difference really. So it's this classic thing of you must have parity in between your races, I suspect, so that something in the same bracket must be of equivalent power. Interesting, different reports, which you might expect from a foreign technology, if you like. Seems to work on the reloading principle of slap it like it owes you money. Not really sure what's going on there.
Heavy weapon! They've got heat!
We've got another collector weapon here. Forgive my ignorance as to who the collectors are, but it's very alien looking. Using focused radiation, so a particle beam. This is an energy weapon. This is what the franchise seems to avoid for the most part. As it says in the description, the amount of energy needed to create a beam that can damage something is several orders of magnitude more than what's necessary to accelerate a projectile. So it's less plausible as a human sci-fi weapon. But of course, if we introduce other races, other species, if indeed that's what's going on, then that opens things up a bit. Kind of what I expected / hoped for, something that is a constant beam, like a proton pack from Ghostbusters, but more focused. Something that you can hose on target, so you can also walk the beam onto target. Beam weapons, they're great fun.
Cortez, situation. Swapping out the parts, Commander. Hang on.
Right, so Mass Effect 3's M96 Mattock 2. Now, a mattock, as I know from having trained as an archaeologist, is a hand tool breaking up soil. So it's an interesting choice of name. The aesthetic seems to have shifted slightly, although it's recognisably Mass Effect-y, to sort of barrel-like protuberances with a casing. So it fits the aesthetic. And we've clearly got now, in line with the tropes of the day, the ability to modify the weapon. Not just change the ammo out, but to actually modify it and change its stats. I definitely got the sense there of a sort of sci-fi version of a quote-unquote battle rifle, something more powerful but slower firing. Thank you for watching. Please do look at the links in the description in case you'd like to donate or help us out here at the Royal Armouries. By the time you see this, we will be open again at 2 of our 3 sites. So here at Leeds, down at Fort Nelson as well, and hopefully not in the not too distant future at the Tower of London too. Otherwise though, we'll see you again next time. Thanks again.